one piece of advice for me is that I think that there are so many ways to get to from 0 to 1 and beyond. Then you should not look at others and say, well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. Just do what makes sense for you and try to stay curious and open-minded and work hard. But there is no one way to achieve success. It's just millions of decisions that need to be made every day, almost in when you're starting the business.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Janis Vavere. That's as close as I'm going to get to pronouncing it right. But Janis, starting out his journey in high school, struggled to decide which direction he wanted to go after high school. Wanted to do something more general but analytical, and so ended up getting a bachelor's degree in physics, and then also got a couple different master's degrees in Amsterdam in business information systems and systems management. And then after that, started working for a business as the first employee, EU employee. And then he managed to work his way up to managing a customer base there, and then moved over to an early stage startup doing localized sales management, marketing, and business. And then realized localized was missing some generational gap components, and so him and a couple co-partners or co-founders started the business they're doing today. So with that much as a introduction, welcome on the podcast, Janis.
Hey, happy to be here, and thanks for having me.
Excited to have you on. So I just gave a quick walkthrough to a much longer journey. So why don't we rewind and unpack that a bit? So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming out of high school, not sure what you wanted to do.
Yeah, it's actually a lovely question, because I think it really, going back into someone's journey and hearing it, actually can really understand how you can connect the dots moving forward, but not going backwards. And really they do connect for me. So I did physics, as you mentioned, in the bachelor's, really because I didn't want to do something easy or general, but I also didn't want to specialize too much into something like medicine, for example. And I found physics to be a great foundation for everything I did after, especially academically, because it just sets the foundation for any discipline you want to go into. And it trains you to think analytically. And so then I actually, after physics in Latvia, I moved to Amsterdam to study one master that wasn't so much fun. It was kind of strange. It was in management and health science, but it somehow didn't click with me. It was too focused on social sciences, and after physics it was too big of a gap. So I started another master's in parallel. It was called business information systems, and it was actually really helpful. We got a lot of practitioners from the field coming in, telling their stories, how they and most of the times how they unsuccessfully built a big system for a bank or a government or an e-health system, and where things went wrong. And that's actually how I got into the business I'm in right now, because I was writing a master's thesis about requirements management software called Jama, that still exists. It's a good business, and I worked there as well after. But we were really building out this quite complex system in Latvian State Revenue Service, and we used this strong formal practice of requirements management to control how the system is being built, and also the supplier network, and how the external developers can contribute to the project. And that's what got me into SaaS. I went to Portland, Oregon, in 2016, to the headquarters of Janis Software. Really fell in love with the vibe, with their attention to the customers and love for the customers, and then that's how I became the first European employee for Janis. Is they were planning to open European operations anyways, and I wanted to test out the waters, and so I became an SDR for them, and now I'm back into the requirements management space, building TraceSpace, which is basically modern AI enhanced requirements management platform. So the future of product development, I believe.
So now you went and you got the bachelor's physics, and then you went and got the couple master's degrees, and so now you're coming out of school and you started working for the one business. And remind me what the name of that business was.
It's called Janis Software.
Jama.
It's headquartered in Portland, Oregon. And they do requirements management for enterprises. So let's say a big automotive car maker, OEM, like Ford, uses a formal practice called systems engineering to actually document and specify how the car is actually going to be built, and different engineering disciplines need to work together to write down that specification. And that practice is called requirements engineering. And the JAMA is a platform built for engineering collaborating on this textual piece where different disciplines come together and say, okay, this is my mechanical engineering part. I'm writing these requirements, and they ask others to review, and electrical does the same, and thermal, and so on. I'm oversimplifying because the whole process is much more complex than that, but in principle, it's like a powerful document editor where you can sort of collaborate on specific pieces of the specification together with other engineers.
Makes perfect sense. So now you did that for a period of time, and then I think as we chatted a bit before, you ended up jumping over to a more of a startup business and working there for a period of time. And what kind of prompted that move, or what made you decide to switch gears?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, because actually I had a plan to move back from Amsterdam to Riga, Latvia, for a while, and I was thinking that it's going to happen much later. But I also always wanted to bring back the knowledge about B2B, about selling to engineers back to my home country, and then this opportunity arose where I heard about this small Latvian startup called Localize they were doing about 1.5 million ARR at the time, completely bootstrapped, small team, a small office in Old Town in the city. But they were asking all the right questions and about how to sell to bigger organizations, how to sell a technical persona, and they already had some really good logos on their customer list. And so that's how I became their first head of sales. I had a small team of 5 people when I joined. And then within 3 years, we had a global remote scale up with 350 people remotely in every continent. And my team was 115 by the time I left late last year to start TraceSpace. So it was quite an intense experience, I have to say, growing a small company to a big scale up that quickly, and because you had to basically adapt and adjust and reinvent yourself every quarter almost, because the company just grows so fast that what did work few weeks or months ago does not work anymore. And so you need to figure out what do you need to change, whether the processes need to be adjusted, the tools, your own patterns. And so it was highly demanding and highly rewarding experience to show that we can scale a product in a company without ever going on site to sell or anything like that. We did really good business actually.
No,
and it's still a good place.
Sounds like it was a good opportunity and worked out well and presented a great opportunity to do something new and pursue new skill sets. So now, how long were you? Did you work for them, or how long you were there?
I was in Localize from January 2020 till November 2022, so almost 3 years.
So now you were there for, almost 3 years. And then I think at some point you mentioned, hey, saw maybe a bit of a gap in the marketplace, or you otherwise saw an area that could be improved and maybe that was being overlooked. So kind of walk us through a bit of, how you, or what you figured out and kind of what prompted the change or the shift in direction.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question because this could be useful for a lot of people. But my observation about working at the different software scale-ups is that there is a generational difference between what software or B2B, especially B2B software as a service, can and should do. So if you go back a long time ago, companies received software on CDs to put it on their own servers somewhere. And then came Salesforce with their subscription and cloud-only model. And that kind of triggered a completely new era. And over time, business software started to become or look like much more like consumer software. So it's often gamified. It's very easy to use, easy to figure out. It has some nice kind of fun features, and we all know the confetti in Carta or some emojis in Slack, where users start to expect the same experience as they have in other types of software, also in their business. And the other thing is that the connectivity and the openness and the flexibility of the tools are changing. So I saw at Localize that there is so much more now ability, like the APIs are just well documented and very straightforward. The tool is configured for any workflow, and it doesn't really enforce some sort of opinionated way to do things on you. And I realized that that's a big difference compared to the existing requirements management tools in the market. And I think this can be applied to many disciplines, especially the more formal or more enterprisey, where much more product-led, open, easy-to-use products are going to start disrupting the big old players. I don't know, something like SAP is already happening in some of the places, like in engineering, like there's things called BOMs, bills of materials, or some sort of life cycle management that actually doesn't have to be so ugly and hard to use. You need training to learn these tools. And so I thought the same about requirements. I think that systems engineers, requirements engineers, people that build the innovations of the future deserve good tooling. And that's what we set out to build with Traceface, is to build an easy to use modern requirements tool that does not need months long training and configuration, that you can just get with a credit card online, try out get the value, try out the AI, and then if you like it, you implement it a team, and eventually company level, much more bottoms up than the traditional sales where you had to buy thousands of licenses, hundreds of licenses upfront without knowing whether you're going to get the value and when and how you're going to fill those seats that you just bought.
So now you have, you identify this gap, you say, okay, there's, I think there's an opportunity here. We can do something a bit different. We can do it better. And so you decide, okay, with that opportunity, now, how did you start out or build a business around that? Or, and because I think it was you and a couple other co-founders. So how did you kind of get started? Did you guys all quit your jobs and went there and, just started the business all at once? Or did you do it as a side hustle? Or kind of walk us through a little bit of how the business got going?
I think we have this. So basically, we have three co-founders: Carlos, and Mikos, and me. And Carlos is our technical co-founder. He's been building these large enterprise systems for the government, where you actually need to make sure that different engineering and business analysts and all kinds of people can collaborate. So different stakeholders need to collaborate. And so he's been using the practices of systems and requirements engineering for a while. And so I told him this idea that, I think that there could be a better requirements tool. And I think it was 2021 in the summer. And so for about a year, not actively, but he had it in his mind. So he built like some sort of proof of concept, some prototype, so had some ideas. Then he'll put it on a shelf, and then thought about it the same, and he figured out another architecture for another product that he was building. And then he showed it to me and Mikos in the summer of 2022. He said, "I think I figured out the architecture of this product." And I think that's a sort of an important piece, because it really de-risks the so-called technological risk, whether what we think we want to build is even possible to build. So conceptually, we knew that this architecture that Carlos built actually will work for the product that we think that we need to build. And that was an important aspect that gave us confidence to go forward. And we still had all of our jobs, and we started interviewing the people from our networks, and just purely through cold LinkedIn outreach. We interviewed systems and requirements engineers in different disciplines, different types of companies, and we didn't lead them into these questions. We actually simply asked them about their day, about their week, about what are the pains in their daily jobs. So and we crystallized that it is clear that there is a gap in the market that none of the tools fill, which is ease of use. So they said that they need to keep retraining people in using these requirements tools, and that there is a gap in ability to connect these tools to each other. So everyone wants to integrate their tool chain, and these all their legacy tools lack good APIs that are stable enough to build good integrations, or they're too complex. And so and we actually did talk about AI with those people a bit as well, and it did not resonate as much as we thought at the beginning. But once ChatGPT came out, also the mood in those design partner research interviews changed, because they tried it and they realized, well, actually this could work in some ways. And so we started putting together a vision for a requirements tool, but where AI would be integrated in natively. And so that was fall last year, so Q4. And I quit my job because I already had enough conviction. We had the architecture, we had the people telling us that there's something needs to be done. And we kept interviewing these people and created a strong, solid story. And then that's when we went out to raise the mid-December last year, and then finalized the pre-seed fundraise, $1.5 million we raised by the end of January. And then that moment also Carlos and Nikos left their jobs, and we have been actively building the product, the company, the team since then.
Well, sounds like it was a great journey, and continued to move things forward and figure things out. And sounds like, have had good success in raising and building and bringing on the right people. So definitely excited to see where the future takes the business for you guys. So with that, now as we've kind of reached the present day of your journey, always a great time to shift to the two questions always asked at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I always like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what'd you learn from it?
I think as an executive of a rapidly growing B2B SaaS company, there was a lot of pressure in the past few years that from the VCs and from founders and other executives, that hiring people equates growth, and it does not matter how much it costs to grow, as long as you grow fast, it's fine. And there was this mindset of growth at all costs. And I think the biggest mistake that I made is kind of get into this hype, and you start believing that making these seemingly irrational decisions for like hiring 50 people a quarter, sort of that they make sense, but actually it does not make sense to hire 50 people a quarter if you don't have the growth behind it. And so I think that was the biggest mistake that I made as a leader, was not being more firm on what makes and what does not make sense. So like everyone's in this hype, hiring people, trying to grow, but you look at the operational model, at the revenue model, and you think about what is possible to grow, and what's even like what's realistic, and you just can't imagine any way where something like that kind of growth could happen, or where it could come from, because there's nothing in the business that indicates that kind of growth. But then you hire people for the growth that is unimaginable. So I think that was a mistake. But and the problem is that when you hire that many people, you start to lose focus on the talent concentration, and you hire just to fill the seats because you need the people to be in place for the expected growth. And that's the biggest learning for me. We're very focused in Tradespace to keep up the talent concentration, which is what Steve Jobs talked about also. Was A players want to work with A players, and they start to self-police. And that's what we're trying to do, is we want to hire the best people that we can. And every person will be smarter than the rest of the team, and in some ways, in some areas, and we'll all learn from that. And then hopefully those people will also hire people smarter than them, and so on, instead of the downward spiral of talent concentration when you're overhired, and then the people that might not be experienced or skilled enough start to hire people in their teams, and so we basically get out of control.
No, I think that's definitely a easy mistake to make, but a great one to learn from, and definitely one to benefit on going forward. So with that, now we'll jump to the second question, which is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one piece of advice you give them?
Yeah, I love this question because it's something that I think about a lot these days, how actually much more respect I have for people that reach product market fit, so the 0 to 1. So from nothing to traction, from giving value with your products to people and users. So I think that my observation is that there is no right one way. I would say that I would advise people to try to work in the industry that they want to go into and experience some of the pains firsthand. And just, for example, if you want to be in B2B SaaS, then I think it's helpful if you've worked in B2B SaaS to see how it feels and looks like and what decisions are and how they are made. But one piece of advice for me is that I think that there are so many ways to get to from 0 to 1 and beyond. Then you should not look at others and say, "Well, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this." Just do what makes sense for you and try to stay curious and open-minded and work hard. But there is no one way to achieve success. It's just millions of decisions that need to be made every day, almost in when you're starting the business, and just need to feel what's right for you and try to do the best. And I still do believe it's almost like a lottery. Still, you can de-race some aspects. And you can try to build the best product possible. But then you need distribution, marketing, everything together, the right team. So I would say don't be discouraged. It's all everyone's journey is an individual one.
No, I think that's definitely makes sense. Great takeaway and a great piece of advice. So, well, now as we are wrapping up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
We're very active on LinkedIn, so find me on LinkedIn. It is my handle on LinkedIn is B2B_SaaS, or you can find us on LinkedIn also via our LinkedIn page. Race.space is the domain and the LinkedIn handle.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect on LinkedIn, support a great business. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So, well, thank you again, Janis, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of your other listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review, helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if you ever need help with your startup or small business with patents or trademarks, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Janis, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you, Devin, and have a good day, everyone.